Hey everybody, happy Saturday night. It's 7:30 p.m. here where I am, and maybe a different time wherever you are. Thanks for joining me. I'm Anjanette Levy, and if this is your first time joining me here on my channel, thanks so much for joining me. We are talking about the Idaho 4 case and the Bryan Kohberger case. There have been some new things happening. Maybe you heard that there was a Dateline that aired last night, and it had a lot more new information in it than I expected. And I'm sure some people involved in this case are having some heartburn over what was aired last night. But we'll get into a lot of that and how this could impact the case, this information becoming public. Thanks to everybody for joining again. If you haven't already, please give me the thumbs up there. Helps with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe. I just went over 5,000 subscribers. So thank you to everybody for helping me get there. I really appreciate it. And we're going to get into a lot of stuff that happened outside of the Dateline episode and the stuff that was aired inside the Dateline episode. So let's look right now. We've got Susan Lawton. Hi, everyone. It's my first time to the channel. I'm from the UK. Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you, Susan, for joining from the UK. We love that. Clicker AK says, okay, here we go. Here we go. Fill us in, Anjanette. I am going to fill you in. I'll give you all the tea, as the kids say. Looks like I'm a little out of focus, so I will fix that. And I do want to say happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. If we've got some moms in the audience, happy Mother's Day. I was out, wanted to do this at 7 Eastern tonight, but did not get to do that. And I was running around trying to get things done for Mother's Day. So that was kind of wild because I was at the flower place at Lowe's trying to get flowers, and it was just like a zoo. It was horrible. So let's start if we could. By remembering the 4 victims here. So these are the people, the 4 young people who lost their lives on November 13th, 2022. I've said it many times before that they went to a football game on November 12th, 2022. They did what kids do, right? They went to a football game. They went out drinking. Ethan and Xana went to a party at the Sigma Chi house, not far from the 1122 King Road house. And they all came home and went to bed. Xana was eating food from her DoorDash, according to everything we know. And then somebody entered the house with bad intentions. And some of what I suspected was talked about in that Dateline show last night. Some of what I suspected about who the intended target was in there. So it was pretty sad to hear some of the things that went into that were reported in that show last night. So we are here because of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana, and the fact that they lost their lives. They're 2 roommates. I typically blur their faces, but I mean, they were aired on national television last night. They are witnesses, but I also consider them crime victims, and I try not to air their names. But, they've been blasted out there. So there they are, and they will be testifying in the trial in August. So it's just really, really sad. Texas Ranger says, hey, Monty, sorry. Cindy Hollenbeck. Cindy lives in Pullman, Washington. She says, today was graduation day for the University of Idaho. Moscow was a madhouse. Go Vandals. Yeah, and I actually saw on the internet, on Twitter and X or whatever, that Ethan's triplets, his siblings, Hunter and Maisie, that they graduated today. So congratulations to them. it's got to be a really bittersweet day for their family because Ethan should be there with them. So that's just really sad. Kickboxing Mom, yay, caught alive. Hello from New York. Well, thanks, Kickboxing Mom. I'm so excited that you're here. So we should take a moment to remember the 4 victims here, because that's what this is. This is what this is about. This case is about. And I think we should remember them every time, we talk about this, because the attention has now turned to the trial and the person that, prosecutors say has done this and taken their lives. So let's now talk about Dateline. Maybe I should put a poll up. Who here watched the Dateline last night? Let's see. I'm going to put up a poll, you guys. Well, I was going to try to put up a poll. I'm assuming a lot of people watched the Dateline. Some people are saying I did. Happy Nightmare says I did. Oh, Amanda says can't get it in the UK. Okay. Stacey Ann watched on Peacock 2 hours ago. Gaia Hypothesis says nope. So, oh, the docket says a lot of folks haven't. Okay. Wow, a lot of people haven't watched it. That's interesting to me. Okay. Well, I'm sure NBC doesn't like that. A lot of people haven't watched it. So we'll talk about it. Guy Jamnick says, hi, Anjanette and hi, Pope. You need to get the new Pope. Yes, I do. I do. I guess he'll have to come here and I'll have to go cover it for somebody so I can get a new Pope. That's Francis back there. So, yeah, Pope Leo. I guess I need a stuffed Leo. Somebody's got to make a stuffed Leo so I can put him up there. Okay, so here's what happened, guys. And I'll pull up the preview. So last night, and here's Eric with the docket. He was going to be helping me out here, but I don't know if we can figure out how to do this. He was going to help me out with some of the comments and stuff. The Dateline had a 2-hour special, and they said, here we are. Here's our episode. It's the first time we've covered this in about 2 years. Bryan Kohberger, he is accused of murdering Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, and he's facing the possibility of the death penalty. He is going to be going on trial very soon. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. Graciela Gracie G, thank you for the super chat. Anjanette, much love from Melbourne, Australia. Happy Mother's Day for your mums tomorrow. Sunday here. I'm listening while getting ready. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Thank you for doing that. Bajika and Angelkovska says they can't get the Dateline episode. So I'm going to go and pull up for you guys the actual Dateline, the preview that aired. And this is all Dateline stuff. So I want everybody to be aware of that. So nobody thinks that we're stealing their stuff. But they did send this out to the public. So I'm hoping this comes through if you guys are watching from another country. I'm hoping that you're able to actually see this when I share my screen and show it to you. I don't know how that works, but I know sometimes people can't watch certain things in other countries. So I'm going to pull this up and share my screen and show you the video preview, which I'm hoping comes through. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen, which this isn't even the one that was coming through. So here we go, guys. Let me know if you're from outside the United States and you can see this or not. Can everybody see that? Okay, I'm going to push play so you guys can watch this. Hopefully, if you're in another country, you can see it. And there's a longer version I'm going to pull up as well.
For two of the murders, investigators discovered a sheath from a K-bar knife apparently left by the killer in one of the victims' beds. DNA found on that sheath has been linked to Bryan Kohberger. Dateline was the first to report that Kohberger bought a K-bar knife 7 months before the murders. And now we've obtained records showing that after the murders, Kohberger was back on Amazon looking at K-bars. He even clicked Buy Now and began the checkout process before exiting. Kohberger's trial is scheduled for August. Keith Morrison, NBC News, Los Angeles.
We're getting the best start to the day because we started together.
Okay, so we learned a lot of new stuff there. A few new things. We had heard some rumblings, and please let me know, everybody, whether or not you could see that if you were in another country, because I don't know how that works everywhere. Thank you so much, Clicker AK, for the super chat. I appreciate that. Always been a fan. Love that you have your own channel now. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you so much. It's very sweet. We had heard some rumblings about this, that Bryan Kohberger had some searches for pornography on his phone. I'm not sure that that's totally unusual. You know, he's a guy in his mid to late 20s. I don't think he had a lot of luck with the ladies, but I think it's the nature of these searches talking about, you know, sex with women when they're passed out, when they're drunk. That makes me think of somebody who cannot consent. And that is very, very disturbing. It's just, you're talking about people, if you're drunk and passed out and you're looking for pornography and searching and possibly viewing pornography, where people are drunk and passed out, that means they can't consent. They can't consent. And that is rape. That is sexual assault. So that is very much a disturbing thing. And it didn't sound like it's just once that this happened. It sounded like it happened more than once. And according to Dateline's reporting, and they say, you just heard in that clip, Keith Morrison said trusted sources. So they have, according to them, sources, plural, more than one source. So that to me is very interesting. It's very interesting to me too, because there was a lot of information revealed last night by Dateline that I'm sure, you know, as a news person, you're like, oh my gosh, what a scoop. I want, you know, you want the scoop. You want to know all of the information. That was a tremendous amount of information that came out in that Dateline special last night, especially when trial is starting. The jury selection is scheduled to start July 30th. The amount of information that came out in that Dateline special was really crazy. I mean, and I say that because it was so much information. They were talking about his Google searches. They were talking about not just his cell phone records, because they were acting like they talked about this exclusive information about the 23 visits to the house where, you know, it was pinging off the King Road cell tower, where that meant that the phone was within a football field or so, within 100 meters of the King Road house. And so they said they don't know if it was stationary, like if the phone or Bryan Kohberger was ever stationary around the house. So I found that to be really interesting. But yeah, the amount of information that came out, I'm sure Ann Taylor, you know, I'm sure she's having a panic attack about this. They also revealed selfies. They showed selfies from Bryan Kohberger's phone. And these selfies, I'm going to show one of them that Dateline showed. That is one of the selfies that Dateline said they found that the police found on Bryan Kohberger's phone. So remember when we had the one selfie from the morning of the murders? And remember, Bryan Kohberger is saying he had nothing to do with this. He did not do this. This is Bryan Kohberger in all black, wearing a black hood, a black sweatshirt of some sort, black clothing, and a hood. And we know when he was taken into custody, he was wearing a black hoodie. That was in the court documents. But Dateline says this came off of Bryan Kohberger's phone, and one of their trusted sources, with a plural, with an S on the end, gave this to them. So it's like, who is giving them, is this somebody in law enforcement giving them this, somebody in the prosecution team? I don't know. But I mean, it certainly violated the gag order. You always want all the information, but wow, I just can't even imagine, if Bill Thompson is having some heartburn over this, Ann Taylor, is she having some heartburn? Is Judge Hippler having some heartburn over this? I mean, the amount of information that came out, it was incredible, because this is all stuff that would have been in discovery. And so there are only so many people that would have had access to this stuff. So it's interesting. So this is one of the photographs that they said came from Bryan Kohberger's phone, and they showed a lot more. I think I have to be careful in how much, how many of these I show, or how much of the Dateline I show. I don't want to get a copyright strike, because that can happen. But I can pull up, if you'd like to see, another Dateline preview, that piece that they aired that was longer than the one I showed you. But yeah, so Hella Excited Utterance says, this photo is so completely doctored, it's ridiculous. Well, Dateline says they have trusted sources, and that this came off the phone. I just don't understand why it's so pixelated if they've got this right off the phone. It's just so pixelated and weird looking. And when I first saw it on Twitter last night, on X, I was like, that doesn't look totally real. It looks kind of weird. But then I had no idea it was coming from the Dateline thing. It just was on my feed, and I'm like, what in the world? And it looked kind of fake to me. And then somebody said, oh, it's from Dateline. And I said, okay. So yeah, it's wild. So Betsy Ross says he's too skinny. That's why his nose is so severe looking. Well, he has a history of eating disorders. We know that from the court documents. He's an avid runner, or was an avid runner, running many miles in the middle of the night. And there you go. Hella Excited Utterance says, is this dress up for Halloween? I have no idea. We have some skeptics here in the chat. So guys, I can, Tracy Fontenot says FBI is a big agency. Yeah, you're right about that, Tracy. Maybe it is, but we don't know. But I feel like somebody from the FBI obviously could have had access to his, the materials in Bryan Kohberger's phone, of course. But I'm just trying to think of the circle of people that have access to the discovery materials. Okay. Because they had Amazon click activity records. They had stuff off Kohberger's phone, his Google searches. I mean, that's all discovery materials. That's a lot of stuff. So, I mean, it's got to be somebody on the defense side, or it's somebody on the prosecution side who put this, Yes. Messica says Dateline disclosed it was altered. Right. They said they tried to improve the quality. Correct. They did say that, but it just looks, it looks funky. They were trying to improve the quality. It just looks funky. That's all. So remember all, give me a like and a subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody coming in here. I'm trying to do something really quickly so I can get some help putting stuff up on the screen, because we have a lot to talk about tonight. We have a lot to talk about. So not only is Dateline reporting that, and this is not the only selfie they showed a wide variety of selfies. And in many of them, Bryan Kohberger was wearing all black. And in one of them, in one of the hooded selfie pictures, he actually had something. Remember the balaclava thing? You guys all know that I have a balaclava. You know, you've seen it if you've been in here before. It looked like he had some kind of hat looking thing up here. And I could pull up the Dateline. I just don't know. Again, I don't want to get a copyright strike on my channel. So let me add somebody on here so I can get a little help so we can display things a little better. So yeah, there are other selfies. So not only do they say he's got all these selfies, and remember we have the other selfie of Bryan Kohberger, the one that's probably the most famous selfie. And that is the one of him from the morning the murders were committed. And remember, Bryan Kohberger says he didn't commit these homicides. He says he didn't do this. And we've got this selfie. But then they showed a bunch of other selfies. That was one of my big questions. Is Bryan Kohberger somebody who took a lot of selfies? And apparently he did. Apparently, according to the Dateline's reporting and all of the photographs they showed last night, Bryan Kohberger took a lot of selfies. So that question has been answered. And he has a lot of these selfies where he's wearing all black and some type of hat that looks black over his or underneath his black hoodie. So if any of us were wondering if he owns a lot of black clothing, guess what? He does. So he has a lot of black clothing, it appears, or at least he's got this outfit, and then he's got the Washington State University black hoodie that Dateline showed him in last night. So another thing they reported was that before the homicides, in the months leading up to the homicides, he was Googling, and I don't know how unusual this would be because he's a criminology student, but Bryan Kohberger was Googling Ted Bundy. And so that's kind of interesting as well, because Ted Bundy, of course, is an incredibly famous, infamous, I guess I should say, serial killer. Ted Bundy went to college for a time in Washington State, and he was also a law student. And something about Ted Bundy that's very scary and off-putting is the fact that Ted Bundy drove a Volkswagen Beetle, and Ted Bundy was active as a serial killer in the 1970s. Ted Bundy, oh, is that not real? Oops, sorry. I wondered if that was real. Okay, if that's fake, I'm sorry, guys. Here, we'll put up a real Ted Bundy. So sorry. I didn't realize that was fake. Oh my God. So sorry. I feel like an idiot. All right. Sorry about that, guys. We're removing the fake Ted Bundy picture. I thought that looked a little too, I was kind of unsure about that. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh Lord. Okay. So this is the real Ted Bundy. Yikes. So this is the real Ted Bundy. And Ted Bundy was an active, prolific serial killer in the 1970s. And he's a really terrifying person. I actually interviewed one of his survivors from the Chi Omega house at CrimeCon in 23, Kathy Kleiner Rubin, and it was really, 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 really sad to listen to her. Ted Bundy, I think, punched her in the face. I can pull up the interview too. It's really, really sad. So Ted Bundy would act like he needed help getting into his vehicle. He would act like he was wounded, or not really wounded, but injured. And he would get women to help him get into his vehicle. And then he would do all kinds of horrible things to them. And so he was in Washington State and then went to other states. And he did this in places across the country. He was finally, justice was brought to him in Florida. So this is interesting. Alyssa D says he attracted women, Kohberger repels them. So what I found interesting, I had actually kind of wondered, and I say all of this, guys, when I talk to you about this, I'm saying this right now. No, I'm not trying to say this means Bryan Kohberger in a court of law is guilty of this, but I didn't. I have kind of wondered about this kind of Ted Bundy possible connection for a while. It just seems so odd to me, or maybe a possible fascination for a while now. And last night, during the show, they revealed that during the semester, and I'll bring it up right now. That at some point during the semester, Bryan Kohberger Googled this paper. Ted Bundy on the Malignant Being, an analysis of the justificatory discourse of a serial killer. And apparently this paper was written by somebody that Bryan Kohberger was going to school with at the Washington State University. So he had Googled this, I believe they said in September. And this is, somebody that this Amelie Pednault, she didn't get along with Bryan Kohberger. So he had Googled this paper at some point. And of course, it talks about Ted Bundy killed numerous female victims in the 1970s, terrorizing Americans as he migrated east from the state of Washington to Florida, women going missing along his path. A seductive killer, he lured his victims to him, a lot of them being last seen helping a guy with a cast or a sling. Caught, he managed to escape twice until he was finally tried and sentenced to death for 3 murders. He fought his convictions in appeal, but was put to death on the electric chair on January 24th, 1989, a few days after confessing to the murders of 28 females. Can you believe that? 28. He killed 28 women. And let me tell you, we're gonna watch a little bit of Ted Bundy here in a little bit. Ted Bundy, one of the things when I interviewed Kathy Kleiner Rubin that so disturbed her was the fact of she felt like the media glorified and held up Ted Bundy as some sort of like really great guy, or not a great guy, but that they glamorized him, or made him look like a glamorous type of person when he's just this like monstrous killer. And I think, what I think part of it is he was a good looking guy. He doesn't look like somebody that's supposed to be a monster, but he was absolutely 100% a monster. And I think that attracts people to a story, and people don't understand it. And so she was so disgusted by that. And I can totally understand that. I don't think people look at Bryan Kohberger and see that at all. It's quite the opposite. But Bryan Kohberger, it seems, according to what Dateline is saying, and had an interest in Ted Bundy, and was fascinated by Ted Bundy. And he searched Ted Bundy on more than one occasion, according to Dateline. So I'm hearing that I'm not going to get in trouble if I show you guys more Dateline. So let me pull it up and we'll go into it. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was the fact that they confirmed that the investigators, and this has been my theory for quite a while too, and I think I've told you guys this before, that I believed Maddie was the intended target. I know a lot of people thought it was Kaylee. I just think because he, the killer went to her room, I've always thought that it was pretty obvious that Maddie was the intended target and Kaylee wasn't even living there. So that Kaylee was kind of threw off the plan. And given the Google searches, if Bryan Kohberger is indeed the killer, that leads me to believe that sexual assault, and I've said this, I believed that sexual assault was part of the motive in this case. So, I always kind of wondered if the person who committed this crime went in there to commit a sexual assault and not necessarily a homicide. Yes, it's a huge knife. But I've always kind of wondered, I always kind of thought this was a sexually motivated crime. It just seems like it. I never thought that the person who, just based on, it seems so haphazard, and I never thought that this person who committed these murders, based on leaving 2 survivors, I never thought the person who went in there to kill 4 people. To me, it seemed like things didn't go according to plan. So, I don't know if that's what the investigators think, but they obviously, according to the Dateline reporting, believe that Bryan Kohberger, or the killer, whomever the killer is, whether it's Bryan Kohberger or somebody else, was targeting Maddie. And I've always believed that. Let's watch a little bit of their reenactment too. This was horrifying too, about poor Xana, because I always thought that Xana, maybe she encountered the killer downstairs on the 2nd floor, but it sounds like the investigators believe Xana actually heard the commotion on the 3rd floor and went up to check it out, which is just so sad. And then was chased down the stairs. My God, can you imagine? It's just horrific. So let's look at a little bit. They had a really good they had a really good animation of the house. So I'm going to pull this up for you. Oh, pulling it up right now, guys. Sorry, it's just taking a second. Okay, I literally just had this pulled up. Sorry, guys. Okay, it's asking me all these questions, and I don't know why. Oh, Lord. Okay. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys. It was like I was all logged in and it made me do something else. I don't really understand what just happened, so I apologize.
One bad decision leads to another. Great. Now we're drug dealers too.
Grosse Pointe Garden Society. New Friday on NBC and Peacock.
I respect her.
If he was, he wasn't the only one.
Okay, guys. So that's the video. Here's their kind of animation
When a
of
person goes missing,
reenacting
time
what
is not on
happened.
our side.
There is a madman out there whose only mission is to get to you.
Over here!
It's not over.
Wow.
Where the X are we? That is for me to know.
Okay, guys. I'm kind of new to all this playing YouTube stuff on I appreciate people emailing or messaging me and trying to help me on what I should do. But yeah, basically what they're saying is what Dateline is saying is that, and here I'll play just a little bit of this. They have the video of this. They have the video from the car going around and around. Okay. Okay, so it's 4 a.m. they say, and Xana's awake. We know Xana got her DoorDash. They have this exclusive footage that they showed. And we've shown this on Crime Fix on Law and Crime. We've actually shown this screenshot that Ann Taylor included in a motion. But now they've obtained the actual video footage. So I don't know if maybe they got it from the owner of this house. Maybe they got it from law enforcement. We don't know where they got it. But it shows the actual vehicle kind of moving back and forth.
I'm approaching the house at 1122 King Road.
So now it's time to go in and do this.
Okay, so there's going to be a commercial break. And now they've got this animation of the house that was really put together quite well. And what they describe is just something out of a horror movie. The whole thing is out of a horror movie. It's just absolutely horrific. And basically what they describe is the investigators' theory that the killer went directly up to the third floor of the house. So they believe it happened sometime after 4:07 a.m., which we really, which we knew. People are saying stuff about Howard Blum. I know he kind of reported some stuff about Dr. Ramsland in the last week or so about Bryan Kohberger possibly having done this to impress her. I don't buy that at all. I think that sounds nuts because Dr. Ramsland would not be impressed by this at all. And she put out something, I know, to Brian Enton of News Nation, and I had reached out to her earlier this week just saying, hey, I saw this on Twitter going around, and she disputes that she was in touch with Bryan Kohberger when he was at Washington State. She went through a lot of things. So she's disputing his reporting as far as it comes to her. Hi, Kimberly Jones. Thanks so much for coming in. No, they're not saying Xana was in the kitchen. So basically, Dateline says they've talked to sources who say that the killer went up to the 3rd floor. I'll play just a little bit more of this. I don't want to play a ton of it. The killer went up to the 3rd floor directly to Maddie's room. That's why they believe she was the intended target. And it would make no sense that, I mean, the killer would go up to that room only because that's who they were looking for. And if let's say the killer is indeed Bryan Kohberger and he's searching, drunk, passed out porn, force, all these things about having sex with somebody or watching things with somebody who's incapacitated, that makes me think this was a sexually motivated crime. And I always thought that might have been part of the reason the sheath was on the bed, because if, let's say, you went up there and sexual assault was your motive and you're actually carrying the sheath. And let's be clear, just because something's a sexually motivated crime, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to have that you're going to sexually assault somebody. Just the act of killing somebody could arouse you sexually. I mean, people have there are some weird things that motivate people. But I always thought possibly the reason the sheath was left on the bed was if the killer walked in with it in his hand, that he placed it on the bed, possibly to commit a sexual assault, and then puts it down. The knife might be used as a threat, to keep a victim quiet, and as a threat. And then you don't realize there's a second person in that bed, and then all hell breaks loose. That's kind of why I thought maybe the sheath was left on the bed. However, it sounds like the investigators, according to Dateline, don't believe that's why the sheath was left there. It sounds like they think it was because Xana, Kaylee's in the bed. She wakes up. There's a struggle. Xana goes upstairs to check it out. So they believe Xana was chased down the stairs into her bedroom. There was a struggle in this bedroom that Xana obviously fought. We had heard before that she fought with the killer, and that fighting for her life. Ethan is asleep in the bed, and Dateline reports that after Xana is killed, the killer killed Ethan by hitting an artery, killing Ethan instantly, but then did something incredibly horrific, putting carvings in his legs, which it's so sick. I just don't understand any of it. Obviously the roommates were at home while this was going on. They're hearing commotion. We know what went on with the roommates. I'm trying to get through your comments here, guys. Yeah, I don't remember if they said the jugular, but CH is saying, I think Ethan was the target. I don't think that at all. I really don't. I'd be interested to, I mean, are you saying that because of the carving of the legs? Because I don't think, I think that it was because of, I think it was Maddie, because the killer went to her room first, according to everything we know. And all we know, to be honest with you guys, what we know is what has been put in the probable cause affidavit, and what has been relayed by Dylan, what she heard, what she remembers seeing. And according to the reporting from Dateline, it sounds like the killer saw Dylan and just walked out because the killer was exhausted. Another thing that's interesting to me is the fact that Dateline reported things only the killer would know, which is crazy. Like, so they've got people on either the state side or the defense side leaking some major information to them, which is wild. So it's totally wild. So only the killer would know that, or somebody close to the investigation, that Ethan had carvings in his leg. I'm just like, it's so sick. And then only the killer would know that he sat in a chair. Apparently there are blood impressions on a chair in Xana's room, according to Dateline, from the killer sitting down. So they think the killer was exhausted. I mean, think about that. You went in there for potentially one person, and then you end up slaughtering 4 people. It's sick. And that would take a lot of energy. So what do you guys think about all of this? And I haven't even gotten to more of the Ted Bundy stuff. I'm going to scroll through and pull up these other selfies. Yeah, Haley, thank you so much. I hate even having to tell you guys this. It's disgusting. I mean, these are people's children. These are people's children. These are people's siblings. These are people's loved ones. And I just can't even imagine being Stacy Chapin. I'm a mom. I can't imagine being Stacy Chapin. I can't imagine being Maddie's mother. I can't imagine being any of these. And this coming out like the night before the show coming out anytime just would be horrible. And then and then going to the trial. But can you even, I mean, this is your child, like, who you since birth have brought up and you send away to college. And Haley, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. It's very sweet. But you bring your children up and do everything you can to protect them. And in working in the job I work in, I think to myself all the time, like, I just want to wrap my son in bubble wrap. Like, you raise your children from being the small, from being babies, and you raise them up and you do everything you can to give them everything you can and to make them safe. And you send them away to college. And in one night, it's all taken away. Just makes me sick. It's just horrible. So then they show the car speeding away. But I'm going to pull up, guys, more of these selfies that they said were on the phone. Another thing they reported, and I haven't gotten into the Grove pool party thing. I know at Long Crime we've reported on the pool party before. And I actually read Howard Bloom's book, and he had reported on the pool party and said that Bryan very like he was really gutsy about going up to women at this pool party, about getting phone numbers from these women, which is weird because everything we've heard otherwise was that obviously it wasn't like some big ladies man. So that's pretty wild that he was willing to do that. It's pretty crazy. So I'm looking for more to show you guys on the the Dateline showed last night too. And this keeps playing ads every time I bring it up, which is I didn't think usually happened because it's in my YouTube library. So we've got pornography searches about people being passed out and drunk and force and things of that nature, which is really super just disturbing as can be. We've got him. We already knew about the information with him being around the house, allegedly within 100 meters of the house on 23 occasions late at night. But we don't know whether or not Bryan Kohberger was stopped at the house. We just don't know that. We know there was a really good view into Maddie's bedroom, um, from that area by the, by the apartment complex next door. You drive up that one driveway, and then there's that parking area, and you can look right into Maddie Mogan's door or into her window. We knew that. Dateline also reported that Bryan Kohberger had a lot of social media photos of young women, college students, not only from Washington State University, but also from the University of Idaho. And some of these women were friends, close friends of the victims. So it's interesting because even Judge Hippler has said in court, and they've said it in court documents as well, that there is no digital connection between Bryan Kohberger and the victims, which is true. But obviously, Dateline's reporting that there are photographs of the victims' friends of the victims on his phone, like from social media. So there was also, some reporting, and I had reported this on Crime Fix too, according to the court documents, that he was using some, they think he was wiping stuff off of his computer at Washington State University the day before the murders. So it's like, do they think he was using his computer at Washington State University in his office to view things? Maybe. Maybe it's who knows, to view one of the intended target, that would be Maddie, according to the logic by the according to the theory by investigators. Another thing, guys, I'm trying to find the selfies here by scrolling through. After after his big the selfie, the bathroom selfie that was taken at 10:31 a.m. Well, before that, I should say, the investigators, according to Dateline, they're claiming after he got home or whatever, he called his father. So apparently he had called his father and spoken to his father several times that morning, after he returned to his apartment or on the way to his apartment when he's driving home. And then, this was before the selfie was taken. The selfie that I will pop up right now. So before that selfie was taken, in the hours before that selfie, he was calling his father. Apparently at one time he talked to him, I think they said for 37 minutes, which is quite some time. So let me pull up, trying to get to more of these selfies that they showed. So apparently he had searched Ted Bundy many times, or several times, I should say. So what do you guys think about the Ted Bundy part of this? Because Ted Bundy, I guess there would be some similarities. You could say, his defense could say he's a criminology student. He wanted to write something about Ted Bundy. Who knows? The investigators will probably say he had a fixation with or a fascination with Ted Bundy. So what do you all think about the Ted Bundy part of this? I'm going to actually pull up something that I was watching about Ted Bundy earlier today. Kay has Shelty says he's no Ted Bundy. Messica says defense will argue it was part of his class assignment. Squeaky Wheel says, I think Kohberger was fascinated with serial killers in general. He studied dozens of them while getting his degree. Bundy may have been his favorite role model, though. Peppermint says it's irrelevant. Crime Dog says, I think he wanted to be just like Ted. Cindy says, I think it makes perfect sense, not just because he's a criminal justice student. Well, I was watching something on Ted Bundy earlier today, and I found it to be kind of fascinating. And when I say fascinating, I don't mean in a good way, but he talked about why he thought he kind of ended up the way he did, or how he became the way he did. And I want to show this to you guys because it's pretty I want to show you part of it, I should say. I'm not going to show you the whole thing. Do you guys, I am interested in knowing, do you guys think that Dateline aired too much, or do you think that they should have put all of that stuff out? How do you guys feel about that? Like, do you think they aired too much information, or do you think that it was just fine, or how do you feel about it? And Angel D says it was absolutely shameful. Purple Daisy says, I don't understand how Dateline got around the gag order. Well, it doesn't apply to them. It applies to the state and the defense, or anybody like who's an agent of the state or the defense. They're not supposed to release information. So that it doesn't mean the press can't report on it. That's not what a gag order means. Hella excited utterance says it's illegal. Taya Toy says, I like that Dr. Gary Brucata fella. So guys, at least it sounds like they believe on at least 3 or 4 occasions that at least 3 or 4 occasions Bryan Kohberger was searching Ted Bundy. Also, he was keeping up with news coverage of the case. They said on November 16th, that was the first time he Googled University of Idaho murders. He was also Googling himself. Maybe he was wondering, I'm assuming their theory is he was Googling himself to see if his name was coming up in reports about this. He was watching news coverage on YouTube quite a bit, according to Dateline's reporting. So I'm sure they're going to say he was monitoring this because he wanted to see what people were saying. I'm sure the state will say that he wanted to see what people were saying, and that he was kind of listening to people talk about what was going on, like he was getting a thrill out of it. So let's listen to Ted Bundy talk. I found this interview, and this is right before Ted Bundy was executed. So I thought, given the fact that we've got Bryan Kohberger allegedly, you know, Bryan Kohberger is accused of these heinous murders. He's allegedly, oh, thanks so much. We've got in America, BK said that he was at Wawawi Park that night. Joyce LePage, a WSU student killed in 1971, was found dead at the park. And the theory was that Ted Bundy was the killer. That is chilling. Oh my goodness. Holy smokes. That's a lot to take in. I will look into that. Thank you so much. And thanks for the super chat in America. I really appreciate that. So guys, let's look at this. This is the last interview done with Ted Bundy before he was executed. And listen to Ted Bundy the way he talks. Ted Bundy is a good-looking guy. I mean, and I think that's, but he was a monster. Let's be clear about that. He's a monster. But that, I think, is part of the reason he made the people are sort of fascinated by him, and I don't think they should be fascinated by him in a good way. But let's look at a little bit of Ted Bundy in his last interview. Ted Bundy's being asked what thoughts are going through his mind. What thoughts are going through his mind as he's facing, execution?
In these last few days.
Well, I won't kid you to say that it's something that I feel that I am in control of, or something that I've come to terms with, because I haven't. It's a moment by moment thing. Sometimes I feel very tranquil, and other times I don't feel tranquil at all. What's going through my mind right now is to use the minutes and hours that I have left.
Can you guys hear that okay? Is everybody hearing that all right? Ted Bundy is incredibly articulate, very well spoken. That's what kind of caught my ear about this. But he is just really disturbing the way he was so, I don't know, somebody in the comments said he was a con man. Yeah, I think he was a con man. I think you're right about that. So let's listen to a little bit more of Ted Bundy. Because I think the prosecution is going to say that Bryan Kohberger idolized Ted Bundy. I think that's going to be what the prosecution theory is, if everything Dateline reported was accurate.
As fruitfully as possible and see what happens. It helps to live in the moment in the essence that we use it productively. So right now I'm feeling calm, and in large part because I'm here with you.
For the record, you are guilty of killing many women and girls.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
Ted, how did it happen? Take me back. What are the antecedents of the behavior that we've seen? So much.
This is really interesting to me, this part, because Dr. James Dobson is asking him basically, what made you this way? And what I find really interesting about this is Ted Bundy is basically saying he grew up in a nice household. He wasn't abused or anything. But listen to this. This is really, really interesting. Wait, is there some, hold on. Taya Toys is here. Guys, we do need a little bit. We're talking about some really horrific, awful things here. We need some we need a little bit of relief here every now and then. Cletus is here, Tayo Toy says. So Tayo Toys always brings a little bit of comic relief. So thanks for, if that's what you're doing. I don't know anything about Cletus unless you're talking about the guy doing the interview, Dr. James Dobson. So listen to Ted Bundy. I hope you guys can hear this. I've got it boosted as much as I can. Ted Bundy is going to talk about what made him like this, what he thinks made him like this.
Much grief, so much sorrow, so much pain for so many people. Where did it start? How did this moment come about?
That's the question of the hour, and one that not only people much more intelligent than I have been working on for years, but one that I've been working on for years and trying to understand. Is there enough time to explain it all? I don't know. I think I understand it, though. Understand what happened to me. To the extent that I can see how certain feelings and ideas developed in me to the point where I began to act out on them. Certain very violent and very destructive feelings.
Let's go back then to those roots. First of all, you, as I understand it, were raised in what you consider to have been a healthy home.
Absolutely.
You were not physically abused. You were not sexually abused. You were not emotionally abused.
No way. And that's part of the tragedy of this whole situation, is because I grew up in a wonderful home with two dedicated and loving parents, one of 5 brothers and sisters. A home where we as children were the focus of my parents' lives, where we regularly attended church, 2 Christian parents who did not drink, they did not smoke, there was no gambling, there was no physical abuse or fighting in the home. I'm not saying this was Leave It to Beaver.
It wasn't a perfect home.
Well, no, I don't know that such a home exists, but it was a fine, solid Christian home, and nobody, I hope no one will try to take the easy way out and to try to blame or otherwise accuse my family of contributing to this, because I know, and I'm trying to tell you as honestly as I know how, what happened. And I think this is a message I want to get across.
So he's saying he had a good family, normal upbringing, no family's perfect. Are you guys buying what Ted is selling? I mean, this is literally like 24 hours before Ted Bundy. Like, I think 24 hours before Ted Bundy was executed. Are you guys buying what he's selling or not? What do you think? Angel D says no. Oh, sorry, Angel. I'm trying to put you on the screen. Angel D says no. Crazy Mom RN says no, he wanted to stay. Zerper _77. Lots of men have a porn hang up and don't go killing women. That's a weak excuse. Right. So Ted Bundy is saying he thinks he got started on the way he was because he started watching porn when he was younger. It started with like soft porn and then got into some other stuff. But you guys, Ted Bundy is he sounds pretty intelligent, and like he's very well spoken. Really, really well spoken. But anyway, let's listen to a little bit more and then we can get back to the Dateline stuff.
But as a young boy, and I mean a boy of 12, 13, certainly, that I encountered outside the home again, in the local grocery store, the local drugstore, the softcore pornography, what people call softcore. But as I think I explained to you last night, Dr. Dobson, in an anecdote, that as young boys do, we explored the back roads and sideways and byways of our neighborhood, and oftentimes people would dump the garbage and whatever they were cleaning out of their house, and from time to time we'd come across pornographic books of a harder nature than more graphic, you might say, more explicit nature than we would encounter, let's say, in your local grocery store. And this also included such things as, let's say, detective magazines and more
Those that
hardcore
involve
porn.
violence. Then.
Yes, yes, and and this is something I think I want to emphasize is the most damaging kinds of pornography. And I'm talking from personal experience.
So Ted Bundy's saying all this started with porn. Do you guys believe that? Oh, hold on. Stacey Ann says Ted Bundy was studying to be a lawyer. That's true. That is 100% true. He was a law student. He went to college in Washington State. Janet Brissett does not believe him, not for a minute. Busby Ford says Bryan looks like him. Yeah, maybe a little, but I'm just not so sure. I don't know if they really look alike. Maybe there's some similarities. Beautiful Messy Ball says he initially believed his sister was his mother. That is far from a normal childhood. Yeah, I would say you're right about that. If that's true, right? Yeah, that's not normal. Yeah, that's definitely not normal. Maybe there was something more. He's saying he wasn't abused or anything like that. So maybe there's something more going on. Mel Mack says Bundy was smart. He talks a good game. Oh, Shannon, thank you so much. Shannon Nelson for the super chat. Guaranteed Bundy would do the exact same thing if released. I'm sure he would. I think that he would. I think Ted Bundy would absolutely reoffend. He's so scary. Dennis Curry says the interviewer had a particular angle with the porn violence link. Bundy manipulated that totally and completely as a final act of power. Oh, so you guys think he's full of it? Interesting. Very interesting, guys. Well, I think at trial, since they put this out there, they're going to say, maybe the prosecution will say it, maybe they won't. But I think it's very likely they could. I think it's very likely that the prosecution may say that Bryan Kohberger was fascinated by Ted Bundy and maybe was trying to do something like Ted Bundy. But guess what? Ted Bundy had a totally different thing going on. I mean, Ted Bundy did something totally different. Okay, guys, I'm gonna show you something right now. Got a little help on the selfies. So I've not been having good luck tracking down. So here, I'm going to show you the Dateline selfies and we'll wrap this up for the night. And we'll continue another time because there's so much to talk about. I mean, there's still so much to talk about, but they're saying Bryan Kohberger was Googling porn about women being not able to consent, basically forced, drunk, passed out, all this stuff. That means women cannot consent. He was Googling pornography about that. He was having a rough time at school. We knew about that. They talked also about the woman who he was friends with and shared an office with at WSU. So they talked about her and the possibility, the suspicion that he may have broken into her apartment, moved things around, taken things, helped her set up a Wi-Fi camera system, which I've tried to find police records of that and I've not had luck. I actually put in a records request somewhat recently about that and got nothing back. So we've got that aspect of it. So that they make it sound like he was engaging in some behavior that was like, it was almost like he was escalating. But if they thought he had this woman's Wi-Fi camera system on his phone, you would think there would be evidence of that on his phone. So let me share these selfies that they found on his phone. So Bryan Kohberger obviously took a lot of selfies. So nobody's buying what Ted Bundy is saying about he got started being, he traces his serial killer stuff back to being into porn. Blajika and Angelkovska says we can watch the preview, but not the episode. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and show you this other thing. So these are selfies that Dateline says they obtained that were found on Bryan Kohberger's phone. And this is all Dateline stuff. So I'm crediting them. Stinks you guys can't watch it outside of the US. I don't get that. So there's the one that's on their website. So there's and then here's one from apparently on November 27th. There's one. So you see he's got the black WSU sweatshirt on. So lots of black clothing. And I'll be interested to see, like, did he send these to anybody? Did he send these to anybody? Did he share with anybody? Share them with anybody? Did he just take a lot of selfies? I don't know. You know, I think we need more information about his selfie behavior, but obviously he took a lot of selfies because we're seeing them. So that one's on November 27th. There's another selfie. Looks kind of similar. This one's December 21st. And I think this is the one I was referencing earlier. See, guys, where he's got like a hattish looking thing underneath. We don't know what time of day that was or anything, or if he was out jogging or whatever. So this would have been 8 days before his arrest. There, and there it is again. Do you see he's got that hat thing on again. So that's like a hat. That's not a balaclava. But here's the balaclava. You know, I've held this up before. So there's the balaclava. Oh. So the night the night of his arrest, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about that. And I'm going to scroll to that really quickly on the Dateline episode. He was wearing a black hoodie the night of his arrest. They had kind of talked about that in court documents. And he was also wearing no longer on the case, had described them once as kitchen gloves. So I always like when you say kitchen gloves, this is what I think of. Like when you were a kid or your mom would do dishes when you didn't have a dishwasher, like this is what I think of is kitchen gloves, right? That's what I think of. So guys, I'm looking for the arrest night thing where they said he was watching a Ted Bundy video. Oop, I think I found it. So I'm going to pull this up for you. Okay, here we go.
Pennsylvania. The investigators needed the person who left the DNA on the.
Okay, so we knew about this. They went to his parents' neighborhood in Pennsylvania, grabbed the trash, flew it to Idaho, got the DNA sample, all of that. Then they move in to make the arrest. And they talk about what Dateline talks about what Bryan Kohberger was doing the night he was arrested. And apparently he was watching a Ted Bundy video along with, he was wearing the black hoodie and he had the kitchen gloves on. So, I mean, when they say kitchen gloves, this is what I think of, like kitchen gloves. These are like what my mom would wear when she would do the dishes when I was a kid. I would wear these when I would help do the dishes as a kid. So he's wearing these and he's putting his trash. He's going out to he's hitting the key fob in the garage. They see, the cops said they saw the lights blinking, and then they see him go in the house. They see the lights flickering in the garage, the key fob. They thought allegedly he was destroying evidence in the car. He's putting they had a drone out. They had a plane above circling. They saw him looking out the back window too. They had a drone out and there was a camera and they could see into the house. They could kind of see what he was doing and they could see him in the kitchen. And apparently saw him with baggies and putting his trash in baggies and had the kitchen gloves on. I got to take these off. I feel silly wearing them. So here we go.
The darkness, they grabbed some trash outside the Kohberger home.
So he's watching this Ted Bundy thing. I guess the day before the arrest or whatever. He's got the hoodie on. He's taking pictures. So Dateline is saying he's wearing the hoodie just like the Ted Bundy advertisement. So I'm assuming the prosecutors are going to say he's running around dressed like this character on the Ted Bundy advertisement. Then he's listening to the song Criminal by Britney Spears. So I don't know if that means anything or not. Maybe he just likes the song. I guess a lot of people like Britney Spears. If you had ever asked me if Bryan Kohberger was a Britney Spears fan, I would never have thought that, but whatever, to each his own.
Seeing a man in a black hoodie turning on a light and entering the kitchen.
So the cops see a man in a black hoodie entering the kitchen.
And then observing the man going to the garage, returning and wearing.
Okay. And then of course, his attorneys say that's because he has autism. Like he's awkward and he doesn't know what he's doing. Cynthia Sweezy says, I love Britney Spears, but not while watching Ted Bundy. Somebody commented that Beautiful Messy Ball says, now if he was listening to Criminal by Fiona Apple, you're funny. Millennial says Kohberger should leave Britney alone. Oh, Kimberly Jones says, Anjanette, listen to the words of the song. Okay, I will. I will later, just not here. I can't play it on here. I don't want to get a copyright strike. So guys, the CH says, oh, he was getting his weed. I mean, that's possible. There was weed. There was some marijuana found, I thought, in his room. Somebody had said it said nitrite or nitrile gloves, nitrile gloves or whatever. Just so you know, his attorney, Jay Logston, had said he was wearing kitchen gloves, and these aren't those type nitrile gloves. So I don't know if they were similar to these, but these are kitchen gloves, like that. They are that nitrile kind or whatever that word is. Anyway, Harlot Oscara says, makes me laugh every time I think about it. Unmasked True Crime says the Britney Spears part was unexpected. I would say that. Lauren says Dr. Gary said he most likely stalked them first, and BTK said stalking was his favorite part of his crimes. So scary. Everybody, I really appreciate you watching. Please remember to like and subscribe for me. Give me that thumbs up. And if you're watching on replay, I forgot to mention that earlier. Thank you so much for watching on replay. I love it. I love it when I come on here and I see people say they're watching on replay. It's the absolute best. I really appreciate it. So Hella excited utterance. You're in another country, so you can't watch it. This Dateline thing is just so prejudicial. Imagine if the defense leaked discovery about DM and BF playing songs about killing their friends or something. Well, they're not charged with a crime. So I am wondering, though, guys, what do you think? What do you guys think of this? What do you think about all of this information coming out? Because this is I've seen information leaked out before. I've been covering crime in high profile cases now for almost 20 years. I'm dating myself, but that's the truth of the matter. I've never seen information like this much information like leak out that wasn't in court documents, or that wasn't going to be in court documents, or that wasn't this is a tremendous amount of information that's come out. So what do you guys think of that? It's kind of shocking. Spruced and Gussied says, not looking good for BK. I had my doubts initially, but he's definitely cooked. Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm going through all your comments, guys. Pampers says, I don't trust a word that comes out of his mouth. I noticed he has a semi-smile smirk after he is mutilated and tortured and killed multiple women. I assume maybe you're talking about Ted Bundy. PKC says, could you imagine just sitting around sorting trash, look up to see a drone looking at the window? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's crazy. Could you imagine? Angela Borghese says, I've heard that hard porn has been linked to male aggression. That's the thing. I think some things are, I think there is a link, there can be a link between the pornography and later, sex crimes and stuff like that. No, it may not be every time, but I think it can happen. Dennis Curry, the evidence collection log lists item number 1 as one night trial type black glove at the Pullman, Washington site. Other documents show that it was in a closet. Okay. That's fine. Yeah, I'm just saying in court, his attorney, Jay Logston, when he was arrested, described them as kitchen gloves and what he was wearing the night he was arrested. So I don't know if he was wearing the black ones the night he was arrested. What's Mandy Strong say? I'm trying to get through all of your comments. Dandy Lioness says toilet cleaning gloves. Hysterical. Beautiful Messy Ball says both the defense and prosecution said in open court he did not stalk them. Yeah, it's very strange because they did, the prosecutor did kind of ask that question to the jury consultant, like about the stalking and following them on social media, and made it sound like there was no evidence of him stalking them or following them on social media. So maybe they don't have evidence of that. Maybe they simply don't have evidence that he stalked them. Rebecca Bruce says, we know everyone that doesn't share Kohberger's wild conspiracy theories is biased, prejudiced, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, I'm glad to see we have people who have different feelings in the chat. The families, my heart is hurting for them. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. The timing of this episode is no good. I would agree with that, Mandy. I do feel like I mentioned that earlier. Ethan's triplets, his siblings, graduated today, and I just can't even imagine. Hopefully his mother wasn't watching. I can't even imagine. Mr. Popinski, you're awesome, Anjanette. Thanks for the hangout. Well, thanks for coming, guys. I apologize for some of my little technical issues trying to get Dateline together and stuff. I know people don't like it when things don't. I know people don't like it when things don't go like cleanly. I've seen people mention that in the comments, so I apologize. I tried to pull that up as best I could. It just wasn't working the way I planned. So I feel like I've covered a lot for you on this front. Dateline had the video of the vehicle that we had seen the screen grabs of, the suspect vehicle 1 circling the area. They had the actual video footage. They're talking about his Google searches with the pornography, about women being passed out, drunk, things of that nature. He was Googling about Ted Bundy. They were reporting as exclusive information him being in the area of that house with the cell tower within 100 meters of the house. That's about a football field, a little more than a football field, on 23 occasions between July and November of that year. We already knew that. That wasn't really exclusive information. It was in court documents. So we've talked about that before. They talked about Maddie being the intended target, which I think I've shared with you my opinion on that before. So it does seem like they think that the killer went in there for one person, and everything, not that it's good at all, but everything spiraled out of control. Georgia Girl says, how does Dateline get away with this, but we are held to a different standard? I don't know, but I don't know, but Dateline gathered the information from people. They said they had multiple sources, trusted sources, and put the information out. So, I mean, the state and the defense are the ones that are not supposed to violate the gag order. Cindy Hollenbeck says, I think Ann Taylor is shaking her head and doing tequila shots. I would love to be a fly on the wall in Ann Taylor's house, in her den, or wherever she was watching this. I would like to know what Bill Thompson has to say about this too. Somebody on the state side or the defense side had to have put this out, or multiple people had to have put this out. There are only so many people that have access to this material. Dominique says, there will be video of him wearing the gloves from the police video. I agree. We will get to see that, and we should get to see that. Shannon Nelson says, what a waste of lives. I couldn't agree more. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrible. The docket says discovery. Yes, it is. I mean, this is all discovery material. This is all material that was handed over in discovery from the prosecution to the defense. So you've got experts that would have, FBI agents, Moscow police officers, detectives. Only the detectives should have access to this information. FBI agents, experts on both the defense and the state side, the prosecutors, defense attorneys. Those are the people who have access to these materials. Nitrile gloves are the new substitute for latex gloves in laboratory or medical clinical exam environment. They're very thin, and you can wear up to 3 pairs and pick up a dime. Okay. Correct. He didn't stalk them, surveilled them. Dana Hodgen says, people find out information in the weirdest places. Scott Metalhead says, thank you, Anjanette. You're welcome. Thanks for coming over and hanging out with me, you guys. Maui Girl says, my heart breaks for the families. Mine too. It's horrific. J3 Marty 5 says, I bet he'd walked and visited the places where Bundy had been. Well, I don't know. Thank you, Stacey Ann. She says, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all of you moms out there. I appreciate it. Paranoid Android says, to be fair, taking out the trash using gloves is not that weird. Maybe he is scared of germs. Putting in the neighbor's can is another thing. We've talked about this before. I mean, the state says, or the defense says, he has obsessive compulsive disorder, and that could explain why he tosses out his shower curtain on a regular basis. Maybe that explains the weird behavior with putting the trash in the bags and does all this weird stuff. I just want to know if he was wearing the gloves before all of this happened and separating the trash before this happened. I am kind of a germaphobe, like a little bit. but I don't separate my trash. I've talked to you about this before. I like how I used to separate my recycling and stuff like that. I liked it organized in the bin. I think you used to have to do something like me. I don't know if you had to do that, but I liked doing it. I like order. I'm trying to think. I did tell you guys, and I got a bunch of harassment for it. Not in a bad way, but the only time I ever put my trash in my neighbor's trash can is when I'm walking my dog, maybe on trash night, and the little bag of, her droppings go, like, I'll sometimes toss it in the trash bag in their trash can on trash night only. I got harassed a little bit for making that big confession that one night. Hella excited utterance says it's so bad. I think she's talking about the leak of all that information. Guys, they also talked about the Amazon stuff with them going back and trying to buy another K-bar, I think a sheath and a knife, and then trying to delete the history. I think I'd already covered that with you guys, so I'm not really going into a lot of detail about the things I've already talked about with you or that I covered on Crime Fix. Healing Frequencies Music says, it's possible this information came from the families. Some are telling more details with this new judge. It's possible, but the stuff that Dateline aired, this is discovery material. Maybe some of the families do know some of this stuff and told some of this stuff, but some of the stuff that was put up on the screen and the level of detail with the Google searches and the dates and times, that's like discovery material. That's material that would have been, that only people on the prosecution and defense team would have been privy to, because they went through detailed timelines of what day and time he Googled certain things, like the Ted Bundy paper and stuff like that. That Lauren says, not sure how it got out, but doesn't look good for Bryan. X says, super prejudicial. Oh, that's very sweet. Tara says, yes, you're the expert. By the way, you look stunning. You're very sweet. It's very nice of you to say. Thank you. It's very sweet. Lainey Carter says the internet has created a different reality. I respect that this lady doesn't pester her viewers like Gray Hughes does. I should have read that before I read it aloud. Sorry. Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't try to pester anybody. Vanessa says, well, the whole investigation was a bit unprofessional. Vic Star says prosecution has a lot. Kickboxing Mom, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to you. X again says prejudicial. Dandy Lioness, wine gets finer as it ages, so do most people, in my opinion. I agree. Hella excited utterance says, this should be at trial, not on Dateline with dramatic music. Chrissy R said it really doesn't. I don't know what you're responding to, though. Mandy Strong says, like, who is leaking this stuff? I don't know. They said they had trusted sources, plural. So plural sources. Pardon me. I just almost sneezed. Harloto Scara. I think Bryan is screwed. It is crazy how much evidence they have against him. To be clear, some of this stuff might be, some of this stuff might be let in by Judge Hippler. Some of it might not. Some of it might not be admissible. And some of it may. All of it may. I don't know. The Ted Bundy stuff may be admissible. Maybe it's not. Maybe the judge will think it's not relevant. He's a criminology student. Or maybe the judge will say, yeah, let the jury hear it and who cares? Let the jury decide if it's relevant or not. So Kim S says latex was so heavily used, it became evident it caused some type of allergies. Nitrile are the newer type. Got it. Well, guys, here they are. Zebra Art says nothing is going to happen. So do you guys think this will be brought up at the pretrial conference this week? Will Ann Taylor bring this up? Kay has Shelties. I think someone is motivated to leak because of all the trash people say about the victims and their roommates. Interesting. Messica says, maybe it means there's so much more evidence it doesn't matter how much Dateline showed. Maybe. It's just a lot to come out. Cynthia Sweezy says, what I wouldn't give for Anjanette Levy and Nancy Grace live in regard to Idaho 4. That would be interesting. Oh, the docket. $1 million question, Mandy, except I don't know what the question is. Oh, Kimberly, you're very sweet. Thank you. Squeaky Wheel says, I'm wondering if Dateline managed to get a hold of an investigator that has retired from the force since the crime occurred. They seem to have a lot of insider type information. That's true. And even if that person retired, they would still possibly be on the witness list. So, we know that the chief retired. So they'd still be on the witness list and subject to subpoena, and they could be asked about this on the stand. Mandy Strong says paranoia on steroids. I'm assuming you're talking about the gloves. Callie Dime says, as long as this information doesn't hurt the victim's chance at justice. Rebecca Bruce says he's cooked. Kim S. has opinions about Howard Bloom. Extreme Blonde says he might not like Britney, but identifies with the song. Well, the thing is with the Britney Spears thing, he did. It was a Britney Spears song, but it wasn't by her. Dominique says someone wants all the doubters to stop doubting. I guess there have been a lot of people who think he's not guilty just because he's a PhD student. Well, that's what trials are for. Stacey Ann says the prosecution and defense can't use anything that Dateline yes, everybody visit the docket. The docket's a great channel. So check out the docket. Mel Mac put a link in here. Amber M says wouldn't be sorting trash in the first place. Can I kick it? Because it's not in court documents, I wonder if any of it is incorrect. I don't trust that Howard Bloom guy now that Ramsland said he's full of it in regard to her. Well, but the stuff about Ted Bundy and all that, they said it came from trusted sources. So I'm assuming, a lot of this stuff, as I said, guys, is discovery material. They're talking about his Google searches, YouTube history, all of that stuff. Maui Girls, 2.5 years is way too long. I'm glad to see things finally moving in the right direction. Yeah, that's not that long, actually, with the death penalty case. I've seen some of them take longer than that, but it's still kind of a long time. X believes Bryan Kohberger is being framed. Zebra Art says, as long as we don't have to reopen all cases where the FBI cast analysis was used. I'm trying to get through all your comments, guys. I feel like I'm so behind. Yes, I am too. Mr. Popinski, interested to see Hitler's response. I am interested in that too, because in the beginning, when they first started having hearings, he said something like Hitler said to both sides, and he even said it at the hearing last month, basically that he respects the lawyers on both sides, but he doesn't want any nonsense and hijinks and all this stuff. Like he was basically saying, no, he doesn't want a circus and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? That was a lot of information. It was a lot of detail to be released. Cindy Hollowbeck says, my son is terrified of germs too. He uses his sleeves to touch things. I do that all the time, honestly. You know what I do? I like in public, I won't touch the door handle. I always like now since COVID, they've got those things on the bottom of the door where you can use your foot, and I'll like pull it back with my foot. Um and then sometimes I'll even use like a paper towel if I've used a paper towel to dry my hands, and then I grab the door handle. I don't like germs either. Guys, I'm really trying to get through all your comments. Rebecca Bruce. Oh, thank you so much. You're very sweet. Guys, if I missed any super chats, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for the super chat, Rebecca. Thanks for all your hard work. Love your channel. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying really hard to get through all the comments and everything. And thank you to Melmac and the docket for helping me with your comments and everything tonight. I've been trying to get through everything. I really appreciate it. So just to wrap up, if you're just joining, thanks again for watching. Give me a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And if you're watching on replay, thank you for that. The new information from Dateline, let's go through it one more time. Bryan Kohberger, they talked about the Grove pool party and how he was pretty gutsy at going up to women and getting phone numbers. There was a married woman there. He tried to move in and kind of flirt with her, and then she I didn't go through this earlier, but apparently said gave her husband the signal that he was being a little, hey, there's a weird guy here or whatever. And according to the witnesses who were at the party, including the DJ guy who was a PhD student too, it's kind of interesting. The husband came over and kind of was like, Kohberger wasn't getting the hint. And I'm wondering if this is going to come up at trial, because if this is going to come up at trial, and this is why they're talking about the autism stuff so much, because they're not allowed to talk about the autism stuff unless he testifies. I'm wondering if, he wouldn't take the hint. So then the woman, apparently the married woman, jumps in the pool or whatever, and the husband has to come over and, shoo Kohberger away. Kohberger is Googling pornography about women being passed out and drunk and things like that. And they're drunk, passed out, forced, kind of forced sex, that kind of thing. It's really disturbing. He was Googling about Ted Bundy. There's a bunch of the selfies. I'll show the selfies one last time, just so you can see them. One last time, guys. Here are the Dateline selfies that they've obtained from Bryan Kohberger's phone. That one's from November 27th of 2022. And there's another one, I guess, from the same date. There's one from December 21st. He's got a WSU sweatshirt and then some kind of black hat on. So they've got all these selfies that Dateline's obtained from Bryan Kohberger's phone from trusted sources, they said. Bryan Kohberger had photographs of young women from both Washington State University and the University of Idaho. These were social media photos, they said, that he had these on his phone. Dr. Brucato said he was trolling. Some of the women from the University of Idaho, according to Dateline's reporting, were friends of the victims on King Road. I already mentioned the Ted Bundy searches. He had also Googled a paper by Ted Bundy that was written by one of his colleagues at the school at Washington State. Tayo Toys here with the comic relief. Do they make nitrile socks? They also Dateline confirmed that investigators believe that Maddie was the intended target. That's been my theory for a long time now. and that he went up to her bedroom looking for her, and that he didn't expect Kaylee to be there. Kaylee wasn't supposed to be there. She hadn't been staying there. They believe that the investigators believe Xana went up the stairs to check out everything, and that Kohberger then chased her down the stairs into her bedroom. There was a confrontation there. Xana fought. She was killed, and then they believe that Kohberger killed Ethan in the bed with one stab wound to an artery. And then there was things done to his legs with the knife that they described as carvings, which is just, the whole thing is horrific. And then there was more Googling of Ted Bundy. November 16th, Bryan Kohberger allegedly does his first Google search for the University of Idaho murders. He's also at times Googling his own name. And then he's watching news stuff on YouTube, including apparently Law and Crime, about the University of Idaho murders, apparently like 60 items having to do with the murders. YouTube shows, lots of stuff. Then watching one thing about Ted Bundy, a show about Ted Bundy, and there's a picture of Kaylee and Maddie on the thumbnail, and talking about, I guess, similarities between Ted Bundy and these murders. And then, more selfies leading up to the murders, and then, or leading up to his arrest. And then before his arrest, he's listening to that Britney Spears Criminal song done by somebody else. And then watching that Ted Bundy show. And then it's with the guy on the Ted Bundy show advertisement with a hoodie on. So, yes, Mel Mac. Yes. And this has kind of been talked about before too, that allegedly Bryan Kohberger went back to the area of the house that morning, sometime around 9 a.m. or after 9 a.m. But then he's back at his apartment in time to take that selfie. So we don't know exactly where he was. We just know he was back in Moscow. So Dominique says no one mentioned carvings though. It was on the Dateline show last night that there were carvings on Ethan's legs. Just sick. Heather Fitzgerald says, I wish that Dateline would name their source. I call BS on this being legit. Well, they're not going to do that because there's a gag order. And they said trusted sources. So it's multiple. They also had video of Bryan Kohberger being loaded onto an Idaho State Police plane for the flight from Moscow to Boise, because he's now in the Ada County Jail. So I think it's super interesting they had that footage. And it was an Idaho State Police plane. So somebody from Idaho State Police tipped them off, or was it, it could have been prosecutors tipping them off. Could have been somebody from the Latah County Sheriff's Office tipping them off, since they run the jail in Latah County. Could be any number of people. Unnamed True Crime says, I knew about the carvings. Jason Jensen told me about it not long after the crime. I thought there had been some mention of that. I thought there had been some mention of that a while back. A long time ago, something about something really disturbing happening, but you just never know what's true and what's not. Cynthia Sweezy says Morrison doesn't spread misinformation. Sounds like a lot of it came from his producer, Shane Bishop. They have 2 or 3 producers working on this. Red Sauce says there's definitely been a mention of carvings. Yes. Really, really disturbing. The whole thing is disturbing. Dominique says the family and friends of the families would have known about it. A. Heineman says, did the loudmouth coroner say something about Ethan's legs? She was unprofessional and not a doctor. Well, she's a lawyer. I think she was a lawyer and a nurse. I met her when I was in Moscow. So she seemed like a nice lady. Nothing half-assed. I find that so many people are angry if you question how anyone could be afraid, yet on Indeed checking their resume. Yeah, it's very strange, the whole thing. I think maybe they just couldn't come to the realization that something like that had happened. Spruced and gussied. People were leaving the info and comment sections of videos here on YouTube super early on. Crazy, they were right. And I don't want to say the rest of that. I'm sorry. Unmasked true crime. There was a leaked text talking about the carvings in his legs a long time ago. Okay. Von Krull says it's not real until you confront it. I would agree. Plus, they were really drunk, and I don't know. Callie Dime says, I believe the coroner came out and said something about some of the wounds. Rebecca Bruce says their sources are definitely vetted. Cynthia Sweezy says, check out Stacy Chapin's book, The Boy Who Wore Blue. All proceeds help put young men and ladies through college. Yes. R.I.P. Ethan. Well, guys, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on. Again, like and subscribe. I would love for you to like and subscribe. And if you're watching on replay, I really appreciate it. Have a great evening. Thanks again for coming here to hang out with me. And I will see you back here another time. There's still much more to talk about. And it'll be interesting to see if this comes up at the pretrial conference this week, which we will have covered for you on Law and Crime. It's on the 15th. So everybody have a great night. Thanks so much. Bye.